think and I think this is a challenge because some people immediately embraced it, didn't they? For some people, it was just like, this is great, I'm going for it, I can do so much. And for others, this has been a huge challenge. And I think when we think about the leader here, what is your role? You want to be optimistic and enthusiastic, but you also need to have that level of empathy with those who are struggling. And this leader role, I think, is straddling constantly these two places: optimism, empathy, fear, in excitement. Actually, how can I contain the fear that all my employees feel, those around me, about what the future holds, about this technology, whether it's going to take their job, about their own health, while also being optimistic and driving forward and pushing things forward. And one of the things that I've noticed is, we've talked about the role around boundaries and around balance, but I think there's something huge about the cultivation of trust. And I've seen it with clients. I've seen them not feel trusting of their leaders sometimes. I felt leaders not trust that employees are doing their very best when they're working from home. And trust is something that I think we have to work on so much more during this time, to really build trust, show trust, demonstrate trust, embody trust, be trusting, and also trust ourselves. Also trust ourselves to be the best leader we can be, or the best colleague, or the best friend within that. So there's something for me about, leaders are struggling with this trust from many different aspects, but it feels at the heart of some of the work that needs to be done to be, to really take ourselves forward. Any thoughts on that from Jackie or Jess?
I think something that's struck me is people have had to dig deep and find an inner kind of compassion and empathy that perhaps they didn't realize that they had as leaders, or perhaps they didn't realize that their leaders had. And so I've seen occasions where I work with women who are returning to work in parental transition, and actually they've had to, particularly at the beginning of lockdown, where people had children at home, they had it was all just there, and they were trying to juggle everything and still show up at work. They've had to trust in their ability to do that. I think you're right. But also their leaders have stepped up for them and shown compassion and shown empathy, and shown them that they believe that they can do their jobs, and given them the space to be able to do their jobs. So on the flip side, there's been some positives in that people have seen different sides of their leaders, and leaders themselves have dug deep and found something within themselves that, yes, I can lead in this way. Although it's scary, although there's fear, I can do this. So they found their inner resilience, or something inside that's shown them that they can adapt, and they can keep going even in real testing times.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so do you want to say something, Jackie, or shall I move on to my next question?
I just wanted to say a very quick thing about a conversation I had with my daughter walking to the station this very morning. I was asking her, she was one of a team of 14 front of house staff in a big law firm that was only 2 of them were brought back out of furlough. And I said to her this morning as we were walking down the road, why do you feel your line managers, why did they bring you back? What was it about you? And, she started to share some of her thoughts and reflections around that. And one of them was about the way in which she creates relationships. And she told me this story of how when she went back into work, she sent a message to the head of department who had interviewed her. And in doing so, the head of department opened up. My daughter said to her, how has it been for you during lockdown? And the head of department opened up and shared how it was. And it wasn't great. And immediately the trust between the 2 of them deepened. Now, these are the real examples of what happens when we build trust with each other, which, I think about the NHS, which has been talking a lot about compassionate leadership. And then when we went into lockdown, went into command and control. And then many people didn't feel like the trust was there. They had to really fight for PPIs, to get their needs met, to be able to work at home and to know that they were still doing their best work. And I think that, such an important point that you've made. And I also noticed in the chat that there've been comments from, like, Tracy has been saying, introverts don't like Zoom. And maybe, or maybe they prefer Zoom.
Yeah.
And, there are different ways in which we are making those connections. And I think for me, the thing is, we have to be very agile during this time. I had to stretch myself out of my comfort zone and think that it's okay to flex with different ways of being on Zoom. And maybe the challenge is that we also have to think about ways in which we can stretch ourselves, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, excellent point, isn't it? Yeah, staying in our comfort zone, moving out of that, and what is the benefit for us? Yeah, Tracy says that she's enjoyed it, and Tracy, I'm with you. To be honest, I've really enjoyed how much I can do, how many people I can meet online, and how I can still be home for dinner and not be commuting. So, and I didn't necessarily think I was an introvert, but I've thrived in this space. But I completely have empathy with those who are sort of, actually, I just need to get out and see people, and this is really frustrating. So yeah, some really great points.
Jenny, don't we all have different elements of introversion and extroversion?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Let's not box ourselves.
Yeah.
Because there are places where we're introverted and there are places where we're extroverted.
Yes. However, what I would say is a lot of workplaces do favor extroversion. And so this is one of the times where I feel those with introversion has a big preference, might have an advantage, and that's a wonderful turn of events, I think.